Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian and welcome back to Elite Dangerous. Another week, another damaged station. This time, the new station was in the Lunguni system and was one of two potential systems that the Thargoids were aiming to attack, the second being Mentor. Now, a massed effort from players in the Mentor system against the Thargoid scouts appears to have repelled the attack against the Mentor system. Lunguni, meanwhile, has not been quite so lucky, as you can see here. Now, the system targets were discovered last week through access to the newly installed Aegis Eagle Eye system, and I've done a video on exactly how that all worked, and you can go and check that out. And you could have used it for yourself, but it no longer seems to be working. I'll get to that in just a bit. But in short, the Eagle Eye system intercepted a system location which would lead to a Thargoid base, and then once inside that specific base, players were able to access a star map in order to discover the aliens' plan of attack. So recently there's been a lot of very interesting background and lore, and it's certainly worth checking out. Fortunately, this is all available on Galnet and can therefore be accessed in-game through Galnet Audio. How much of this will ultimately affect the game, however, is really something that remains to be seen. So recently it was discovered via ancient Guardian data logs that the Thargoids and Guardians were indeed at war with each other. The data indicates that the Thargoids are an older race than the Guardians, and that the Thargoids might have believed the Guardians had taken their territory. The Guardians did apparently attempt communication with the Thargoids, but those attempts resulted in failure, but it's never really explained why communication actually failed. And this really is an interesting point. Both Frontier and David Braben specifically have said many times in the past that Thargoids are not only alien in their appearance, but also in their thinking. So it's likely that they do not relate to the world in the same way as we do, and that would mean communication would be extremely difficult at best. The differences wouldn't merely be cultural differences, but rooted far deeper than that. An alien race such as the Thargoids, for example, would almost certainly have very different physical senses when compared to a human. Sight, sound, touch, and quite possibly every other sense would not correlate across species. So it naturally follows then that their thinking process would be completely alien, something very, very different. And indeed, it would likely follow on from that they could see territory in a very different manner to us. And yes, I just got hit by the now invisible hammers of doom on the station here. You can see they've broken off, but for some reason the hitbox still extends to the old distance, so don't get too close. At any rate, it's little wonder that communication between the alien species failed in the past. Anyone who's seen the excellent movie The Arrival will have a bit of insight into the challenges that could be presented here, and that was with a non-hostile species. It means regardless of what we have learnt about the Thargoids so far, we're not really in a position to understand them on any level at all. It means that we cannot know what they want, or indeed if they actually want anything to begin with. Desire or want on that level perhaps are entirely human conceptions after all, or perhaps not. Anyway, Aegis have rightly or wrongly concluded that the Thargoids want to remove humanity. The new information on the relationships between the Thargoids and Guardians has led to further concerns among the human population and superpowers within the game world. Whilst it appears that the Guardians eventually developed technology that could repel the Thargoids, humans are not yet at that level. What perhaps has further caused worry for the humans in the game is that there's a number of other similarities between both the Thargoid War with the Guardians and the current Thargoid War, the Thargoid attacks against humanity. The Thargoid Barnacles, for example, were also present long ago in Guardian space, just as they are now present in human space, and anyone who's visited them recently will know that the Barnacles have grown into vast forests. It also appears that the Thargoids are now harvesting the Barnacles, and some suspect that this may well be the reason that Thargoids have returned to this area of space. The engineer Tar also appears to echo the sentiments of Aegis, believing that humanity now has a far better understanding of just what the Thargoids are up to, but personally I beg to differ because I'm a little bit clueless as to exactly what they want or even what is going on. The new Aegis Eagle Eye detection system, meanwhile, appears to have failed its task this week and hasn't intercepted any Thargoid target data. No one knows precisely why it is. It could be that the Thargoids have learnt to adapt to the detection system, Or it could be that human resistance has been far stronger than they expected. Another possibility, of course, is that the Thargoids are changing tactics. As discovered in the Guardian data logs, the next phase of attack could potentially be the Thargoids aggressively mining mineral resources. Now of course that isn't an attack in and of itself, although it does depend where they go mining those. But the question really is, what would they want all those resources for? Perhaps a large construction project maybe. Whatever the case, they are now inside human space and have been there for quite a while. Some player factions have now lost access to long-standing stations, and the Thargoids are coming increasingly closer to Sol, the home of humanity. Meanwhile, in terms of gameplay, it means that the game loops are being tied increasingly closer together. You can now dock at stations, of course, or some of the rescue ships here, and get missions that are directly related to what's going on. Players have been able to repel attacks against certain systems, and the Thargoid massacre missions are there for players of all levels, from the Thargoid scouts all the way up to the Thargoid Medusa. So in this particular area of the game, everything really does seem to be tied together rather nicely. Hopefully then it's not going to be too long until we see what happens next. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.